Morning. Well, today we're going to address the headlights. We're not going to address them all the way because we still have headlights on order. So we ordered some headlights, but then we found out that they weren't DOT approved, so we sent them back, and now we've ordered a different set. So we've taken this apart before, and this front plate comes off here, and then this plate could then come off. So the painter had a hard time with the wiring because the wiring in here is just, it's a little bit kind of stiff. And so when he took the buckets off, it was all crimped together instead of having a proper connector. And so he had to cut some of those wires, and then he was like, they're just too messed up. He's like, you're going to have to redo them. So not a big deal. We wanted to redo this anyway, so we are going to get LED headlights because they're considerably brighter and draw a lot less power. And so that's what we'll be putting in here. We made sure to get some DOT approved lights. So for now though, we're going to take this all apart and we're going to wire it all up and get it ready for those headlamps when they come. So that's what we'll be doing today. You do it. You do it.
Take that bolt off.
Wait, which way do you turn it?
No. Push down.
Wait.
Look. Like that. You just go.
Alright, so we continue our work on the headlight brackets. So when we took the headlights apart, this is what they were hooked into, and it didn't survive me pulling it apart. So it was pretty badly damaged. So we got a new block that we're going to put things in, and so we're going to go ground, and then high beam, low beam, marker lights, and turn signals here. So we've got just a little post from, or just a little terminal block from Home Depot. And then I bought these pigtail extensions, and what they actually are is converters for this type of connector to I think this is an H4 for headlights. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna run the pigtails off of one side of this and the pigtails for the markers, and then they'll be able to plug in to this thing here. So this is the right type of connector for the headlights. So that's what we're working on today, and we're working on it inside because it's kind of cold outside. So any opportunity we can have, like in the morning where we can be working inside, it's a little bit nicer. We're going to stick this new guy in there, and it should provide enough. These are rated for 30 amps, and I think our headlights pull something like 4 amps. So this should be fine. So we're going to go ahead and make ring connectors to put in here and get this whole thing ready to just go mount in the bus, and then we'll connect the supply side to this side. So that'll go out this way and the supply side will come through here. So that's the project for today. Alright, so these should be ready to accept. So we have anti-flicker devices since we're using since we're using LEDs, but this does a nice job of just keeping the wires separated from each other, as well as connecting multiple points on the same thing. Alright, so this is what the new terminal posts look like. The old ones were just completely falling apart, so we've made now different looms, and these will go to the turn signals here. This will go to the marker lights, and we've got two headlights here that have H4 connectors in on them that we've labeled outer and inner. So hopefully that'll be able to keep everything tidy and in place. So we'll get this mounted up. Alright, so these are the first lights we tried here. So we got these off of eBay, and they were relatively inexpensive, I guess. They were $80 for 4 of them, and it kind of showed a classic car. Anyway, these were advertised as being like 5,400 lumens, and they said it would pull about, I think they said 3.5 amps or something like that, to achieve that 5,400 lumens. So they do have the standard H4 connector. They don't look like they're built too poorly. This is plastic. Most of them are plastic that are the knockoffs. And then the heatsink. The nice thing about these is they fit into the housing really well. So anyway, but the big problems were these are not DOT approved, and the pattern of them is more like a spotlight than the traditional kind of where it cuts off so you don't blind oncoming drivers. So that was one of the huge issues. The second one is we can't tell a noticeable difference between high beam and low beam. The third issue was that they don't pull anywhere near 3.5 amps. When we measured it on our voltmeter, they pulled about half an amp, and if I'm gonna guess, they're nowhere near 5,400 lumens. I'm gonna put it at, it's maybe 800 lumens. The funny thing is, these are probably way better than what's on the bus right now with the regular old style incandescent bulbs. This probably is better, but it just isn't DOT approved, and there just was too many issues, so we're gonna send these back. So anyway, we'll show you, we set this up to show how many amps it's gonna pull, and we'll hook this up again to our trusty PC power supply here. So we'll go ahead and we'll turn it on low beam. So that's low beam there. And then high beam is that one. So there just isn't much of a difference. So what we did is we got kind of curious, and we were like, well, what do the amps look like on low beam and high beam? So anyway, let me untangle these for a minute. So we said, okay, what are the amps on low beam? So here's low beam amps. So less than half an amp on low beam, and then just a hair over half an amp on high beam. So that's high beam, that's low beam, that's high beam. And we can't, if we look at the pattern, which we'll take this outside in a minute, and we'll look at the pattern, but we can't see a difference. I don't know if you can see that on the wall, but we can't see a difference in either of these as far as like when you turn it to high beam, low beam. So there's high beam, there's low beam. So anyway, we'll take this outside real quick and show you the pattern kind of on the garage door. And just to show you that it's kind of like just a round, there is no shape to it, it's just a round pattern, which is going to be really hard to aim and get like a throw of light. It's going to have to be aimed at the ground, and it's not going to be a whole lot better than the situation we have now just with the regular stock lights. So anyway, we'll take this outside and we'll show you real quick. Alright, so here we are outside. this is what would be considered low beam, and then I'll switch it to high beam. So that is high beam. So they're almost exactly the same. And again, like I said, with this one, it's more of a spotlight. You can see the pattern is just more of a spotlight, and they are not terribly bright. I mean, they're probably brighter than the stock ones, but not by a whole bunch. So again, that's high beam. I'll change it to low beam. There's low beam. So like I said, there's not much of a difference. So we've decided just not to go with these. The nice thing about these is that they fit into the canisters correctly, but everything else about them was wrong. All right, so these were the second set of lights we bought, and they actually look like they're of much nicer quality. They're dimensionally supposed to be the same size. These are DOT approved, and they're stamped. They're SAE and DOT approved, and they're stamped right on the lens cover. The problem was the profile is a lot bigger, and so we could not get these to fit in the bucket at all. We even had some of the extra old rusty buckets that our painter couldn't use, and we cut those up and tried everything we could to get these things in there, and they just will not fit. So we could not get these to work at all. So anyway, we tried for probably a good couple of hours cutting and trying to see how we could get these to go into the buckets, and in the end we just couldn't get these to work. They're too thick on the top, and the buckets that we have are made for the halogen lights, and so they're relatively shallow, and just that much just vanes and everything back, cooling fins and everything back here, we just couldn't get them to work. But these, we are much happier with the performance, and they do draw a much higher amperage, so we'll show you that. We'll set our voltmeter to amps. Alright, so here is low beam. So here we're seeing 1.3 amps. So on low beam, we are drawing roughly 1.5 times the power of that other one, or just maybe a little bit less. So this is 1.3 amps on low beam, and then high beam we get 1.75 amps, and it's just a much brighter light. You can even feel like some of the heat coming off of it, and if we look at the roof, it's a much wider, brighter light. It puts out just a lot more light. So anyway, we were happy with the performance of this. It's also a nice flat pattern, which we'll show you that outside in a minute. But it's a nice flat pattern as opposed to being just like a floodlight. All right, so this is the second set on low beam, and as we can see, that's the kind of pattern you want to see, where it's flat across to prevent oncoming drivers from being blinded. And these are much, much brighter than the other ones. So that's low beam, and then I'll go ahead and switch it to high beam. So now we have high beam here. So it's a much brighter light. It's a lot more light coming out of this one. Again, it's still kind of a horizontal pattern, but it just fills out the top a lot more. So there is definitely a difference between high beam and low beam on these. So again, that's it on high beam, and then we'll take it off and I'll put on low beam again. So there's low beam. So low beam, high beam. So you can see it fills out the top a lot more on the high beam. So now we're on to our third iteration now of this headlight thing, and we've gone with a little bit larger lights. So all these are 5 3/4 inch lights, and that's what the original lights in the bus were. So now we bought all new buckets, and we're going to try some lights that are the 7-inch lights. So we'll see if we can get those to fit. We haven't even tried yet. We just got them in yesterday, so we'll see how those work out. So you may be wondering, if we couldn't get 5 3/4-inch lights to fit, how in the world are we going to get 7-inch lights to fit? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to ditch the original buckets for the lights. So we're just going to do away with that altogether and get all new buckets. So it turns out 7-inch lights are much more common. In fact, all of the newer Harley style lights are the 7-inch light, as well as it's a very popular mod for Jeeps. So Jeeps also have the 7-inch lights, and so anytime you go shopping for these lights, you'll see, oh, compatible with Harley, compatible with Jeep. So anyway, they're much more popular, and therefore we can actually find buckets for these lights, which the other ones we couldn't. These 5 3/4, we did find some buckets for them at one place, but they were like $80 or $90 each for the bucket. And so since we only paid like $40 for the light, it didn't make sense to put it in an $80 bucket. So when we went up to the 7-inch lights, we were able to find the buckets for less than $20. I think they were $15, but the lights were a little bit more expensive. So anyway, we're gonna try that. We haven't even opened the boxes on those yet, but that's our next plan, is to see if we can make that work. All right, so these are now the 7-inch lights. They're a little bit bigger, and with these we were able to find these brackets that they mount in. So these are made like for a Harley, and they have like a little thing down here so that there's a, you can put a chrome lip on them. And so anyway, we have these, and so we can try to mount these directly to the fiberglass. And then here are the lights. So this is one set, and they are DOT approved and SAE approved, so they're stamped right on the lens. And this is one set that we got, and we thought we'd put these on the outside, and then the other set looks like this, and we thought we would put these on the inside. So we have 4 lights, so these would be on the inside and those other ones would be riding on the outside. And I thought, the reason I got 2 different ones is I thought these might be brighter on high beam, and so I got these. They're both SAE and DOT approved, but I thought these might be a little bit brighter than this style, but I thought this style might throw a flatter beam. Also, if we got both of them and one of them didn't work, which we're 0 for 2 on the other one. So if one of these didn't work in this clamp or whatever, then at least we have another solution to try and to see if we can make fit. So anyway, on these, they are very bright. So here, we'll power them up real quick and show you that. So this is low beam. Low beam pulls 1.5 amps. So if we look at our little meter here, we'll see that low beam on the outside ones, which is this one, pulls 1.5 amps, and it is very bright and very flat, which I'm pretty happy with. So if we switch to high beam, it turns all the LEDs on, and now we're pulling about 2.35 amps or so, and it is, again, very bright. And we'll look at the pattern here in a minute. So that's for the outside ones. So now for the inside ones, which have more LEDs on them, we'll go ahead and hook those up real quick. And we'll see, this is low beam here, which we won't use at all, actually. And that pulls 1.5 amps just like the other one. But high beam is incredibly bright. It pulls 3.35 amps, and it is very, very bright. So that is one thing that I was hoping to find with these, and it is. They are incredibly bright, and it is pulling 3.35 amps. So, anyway, we'll look at the beams on both of these, but they are both DOT approved, and we'll see if we can make these work, but we'll show you the pattern real quick. So I've got them the right way. There, it's this way. Alright, so this is the 7-inch light on low beam. So we can see it's a nice horizontal pattern. It throws a lot of light, but doesn't throw any above the kind of that plane there. So that's really nice. So then if we switch it to high beam, alright, so when we switch it to high beam, so we get a lot more filled out on the top. Not obnoxious, but a lot more thrown a little bit higher. So that's the first set that we were thinking about using on the outside. So now I'll switch over to the set that we're thinking about putting on the inside. Alright, here's the other inner lights on low. And we don't really care about low because we won't be running these on low, but we wanted to see the pattern anyway. So it's weird, these ones seem to give off, I don't know if it's going to show up on the camera, but they seem to give off a little bit more of like a yellow or like a gold type hue to them. Anyway, we'll switch them to high because that's how we're going to run them. Alright, so here they are on high. So that is very, very bright. So these are the brightest ones of all the ones we've tested yet. They are still a little bit gold, which is a little bit odd, but they definitely are very, very bright. So anyway, that's the pattern on these.